All right, here we are down in Long Beach, California. Sometimes come down here to visit a very dear friend of mine behind the camera, who's Liezel.
Hello.
But this morning I had a couple of interesting conversations with some of the guys in Black Star Riders, and it got me thinking that today I'm going to tell you a story from one of the tours that we did with Thin Lizzy. And about this time last year, we were in England and we did some shows with the great Guns N' Roses, touring all over England with them. It was a fantastic time. And Richard, of course, Richard Fortis, who plays guitar in Guns N' Roses, he was part of our little family for a while back the year before. He played with us for the whole summer doing festivals. So it was kind of a homecoming for all of us. I remember one day in particular, we were in Birmingham in England. And on this particular day, our dressing rooms were fairly close to Guns N' Roses one, and we also had 2 days off after this particular day. And as sometimes happens on this particular kind of thing, especially when we have 2 days off afterwards, Ricky Warwick, the singer in Thin Lizzy, he decided to he declared more to the point that he was going to get drunk off his ass that night. Usually he does it that way. He'll declare it and then he'll make plan into reality, as it were. So on this particular day was a strange day of events all around. We started, of course, by going on stage as we normally do. I think it was around 8 o'clock, and we did our set and went over really well. And at the time, we had a temporary replacement as our drum tech. We had a fellow, Brian Rickaby, who sometimes covered for Anto Byrne. Anto had a family event back in Ireland that he had to take a couple of days off to go take care of. And so Brian, who's a dear friend of Brian Downey's, came out to help us out. So Thin Lizzy finishes their set to a very enthusiastic Birmingham crowd. And Brian made a little error as the house lights went down after our set. He turned around and took a step off the drum riser, not realizing where the edge of it was, and fell about 8 feet into the darkness and really hurt himself. The later diagnosis was that he broke his ankle in 2 places. But to show you what kind of a trooper this guy is, he first finished putting the drum kit away and then went and asked the security people if they had a medical facility. We ended up having to take him to the hospital to get the cast and everything. And fortunately, it wasn't anything majorly serious, and also we had, that's fortunate on Brian's behalf and on the band's behalf. I mean, we were happy that we had 2 days off so that we weren't going to get left without a drum tech, as it were. Now, as an aside story, before I tell you about our evening with Guns N' Roses, as a bizarre coincidence, Brian goes to the hospital and he's being checked over by a doctor who notices that he's wearing one of our Thin Lizzy crew shirts. And he says, "Oh, are you involved with the band in some way?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm the drum tech." And he goes, "You're not going to believe this, but I'm the doctor who was attending to Phil Lynott when he passed away." How weird is that? But in any case, back to the show. After the show was done and dusted, most of the guys decided to go back to the hotel, but Damon, Ricky, and I decided to stay back and check out Guns N' Roses again. We try to see them every night. I mean, how many times do you get to do that? But also the aforementioned Ricky's going to get loaded tonight.
Ricky's got to get his drink on.
so Damon decided to join him in that endeavor. I'm not really that sort of guy, but decided to designate myself as the one who was going to make sure they actually made it back to the bus during this debauch session. So we watched Guns N' Roses. They did a fantastic job, as always. After the show was over, we were hanging out in the hallway outside our dressing room, and we saw Richard Fortis right off the stage. He was a little beside himself because he heard the news just before the show that his daughter had had an accident at school and had injured her arm, so he was very concerned about finding out what's up with his daughter. But we ended up getting into a long conversation with Frank, the drummer, and DJ, one of the other guitar players. Both awesome dudes, big Lizzy fans, both of them. So Frank was trying to convince us to add Bad Reputation to the set, and DJ was just being DJ, he's one of the funniest guys you'll ever get the chance to hang out with. So there was also Kat there. Kat is this girl who travels with the band, and she is like their official photographer. She shoots all the shows, all of the stuff you see in the programs and posters they sell on the merch stand are her photography work. She's a very talented young lady, and she also got to be good friends with us in the Lizzy camp, and on the days off she would come and hang out with us, and she's a really cool person. And on this particular day she was standing in the hall with us, and she said at one point to Damon, Ricky, and I that, oh, would you guys like something to drink? And we said, yeah, sure. She goes, well, she points to a door across from where she's standing. She says, that's the band's hospitality room. Go in there, there's everything you could want in there, just help yourself. Alright, so Damon, Ricky, and I obediently file into the room, and as we walk in, we're greeted with the following sight: a medium-sized room with some couches. There was 2 tables set up that just had, one table was covered in all sorts of different liquors, and the other table was covered in all kinds of food and snacks and things like that. And then on the couches and milling around the room were about 15 of the hottest girls Birmingham had to offer, and they were obviously waiting here for, meeting the band or whatever. And the 3 of us looked at each other, and they all turned and looked at us, and Ricky kind of smirked and he looked at me and said, way too much pressure. And we turned around and walked out of the room. And as we walked out, we went straight out to talk to DJ and Frank again. It was at this point that Fernando, the fellow who's kind of managing Guns N' Roses right now, he walked up and he walked into that room. And he came out almost immediately, and he was like, dudes, there's like 15 really hot girls in here. I can't handle them all myself. You gotta come give me a hand. DJ looks at him and says, I don't know, man, I'm kind of enjoying hanging out with these guys, and and I don't have any condoms anyway. And Fernando looks at him and says, I got condoms. And DJ with his impish little smile says, are they big ones? And Frank says, oh yeah, I got you covered. And, oh, well that won't work for me then. But DJ decides to go with them, and they go off into the room. And to show you the kind of mayhem that must have been going on there, about 45 seconds later, DJ staggers out of the room with 2 of the girls literally hanging off of him. And he just looks at us and he goes, dudes, shit is going down, and tells us to go back into the room. We let him go enjoy his mayhem. After about 5 minutes, Fernando comes back out, and he wanders over to us, and we said, Ricky turned to him and said at one point, he says, does Axel never come and hang out with us? And he goes, well, that's his dressing room right there. Why don't you guys go and help yourself? Go in there and hang out with him. Said, really? I said, yeah, it's no problem. Said, okay. So the 3 of us walked in. Let me tell you something. Guns N' Roses, more than any band I've ever been on the road with before, every rock and roll cliche you could ever dream of is full-blown reality here. So walking through the dressing room door to Axel's dressing room was almost like walking into another world. I remember walking in, and the scene that greeted me was a darkened room with a big table of snacks and alcohol over here. There was couches with 8 super hot girls sitting out on the couches, and there was Axel in the back corner of the room wearing nothing but a white terry cloth robe, fiddling with his iPod, trying to pick some kind of a list of songs to play to entertain the people in the room. He saw us, invited us over, saw there was a statuesque older girl there, introduced her name, I think it was Stephanie. She said, well, I'm the designated bartender for this evening, so what would you like to drink? Damon said, I'll have a red wine, and Ricky said, oh, I'll have a beer. And I said, look, I'll just have Diet Coke. She said, oh, no, if you're going to be in this room, you have to drink. I said, okay, cool, I'll throw some vodka in the Diet Coke, we'll go that route. So Axel comes over, and of course, Ricky still had the Jägermeister that he was drinking from the last room. Now he has the beer, so he's double fisting these drinks now, and Axel looks at him and he goes, dude, you're really going for it. And Ricky kind of raises his hands like this, and he goes, Irish handcuffs, man, which Axel thought was hilarious. And we basically ended up hanging out with Axel for a while. As we had came in, DJ Ashba and Bumblefoot, 2 of the guitar players from the band, they wander in and they go straight to the girls. And we get into this conversation with Axel, and let me tell you something. It was an enlightening conversation from my point of view, because almost everything I'd heard in the press about this man seemed to be wrong. He is hospitable, he's intelligent, he's well-spoken. We had a conversation where he let me talk to him about anything and everything I ever wanted to know. And let me tell you something, if I sat down right now and wrote that out as an article and submitted it to Rolling Stone, it'd be front cover material. We talked about everything, about reuniting with the original guys, about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing, about the girls, about living in New York and LA, yada, yada, yada. It was an incredible conversation, very enlightening. And we saw the guys having their fun with the girls over there. So I remember one of the girls was actually sitting there on the couch, and the only top that she was wearing is she had 2 cloth passes strategically placed on her breast. It was unbelievable, I tell you, the things that go on in this camp. We were there for a couple of hours. It was now very late. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and Damon had had enough. And he didn't quite know where our bus was, so I said I'd lead him back to the bus to show him where it was. And actually, Bumblefoot came with us, and we wandered back, and I decided to sit down with Damon for a few minutes to talk before going back in. And we were chatting for a little while, and Jack Taylor, the band's assistant, the assistant tour manager we had out there, he came wandering in, and I said, yeah, I think I better go back in and check on Ricky. He says, yeah, I think you better. When I just left the dressing room, he had Axl in a headlock. So I rushed back to the dressing room, and I see Ricky sitting there on the couch with 2 of the girls, and Axl there talking to somebody else. And I checked with Ricky, and I said, are you ready to go? He said, yeah, just give me a few minutes. And the girl who was sitting beside him was doing everything in her power to get his attention, as it were. Ricky was very drunk, and he finally just turned to her and he said, sweetie, listen, I am married. I'm really married. I do not mess around on my wife, ever. But I have been on the road for like 4 weeks. So I have a strange request. And she looks at him and she goes, what? He goes, can I smell you? She goes, what? He goes, can I just smell you? She goes, oh, okay. She kind of leans over and he goes, thank you. She just gets up and walks out of the room. Axl decides this is a time to make a break for his bus as well. He grabs a bottle of tequila and a bottle of vodka off the table, and he looks at Ricky and says, Irish handcuffs. He wanders out to the bus. I get Ricky back to our bus, and that's an example of one debauched night with Guns N' Roses. Incredible evening, great guys. Look forward to the next time we're on the road, and thank you to everybody in that camp. It was a great time.